I just wanted to explain a few things about my last video. I got a lot of gruff about the comment that femitheists' plan to reduce male population to 10% would decrease violence and would be one way of giving value to males which would make us equal. When I said it was the only way to make the sexes equal, I misspoke. When I said equal I meant via automatic value. I believe there are ways of creating a healthy, natural society where both men and women have equal value, and a reasonably flexible role. Ultimately a man's value will be his utilitarian function to a society. A woman's value will be primarily her reproductive quality, that is her beauty. Do not confuse this to mean that men and women can play each other's role and we humans can exist without any sort of gender differences. I'm just saying we can have equal value in our respective role, and we can achieve some degree of value in the other sex's role, and we can have individuals that completely function within the other's role, without bringing society to a screeching halt, at least when this is done right, and we do not become fanatical gender ideologues. But again, that whole automatic value, that is something males simply cannot have, unless of course they were reduced to a small amount of the population. I think it's also healthy to ask ourselves if automatic value is something that men should have anyway. Males have always enjoyed a very special type of respect, due to the fact their value had to be earned through deeds. If his value were automatic, perhaps males would achieve nothing worthwhile in life, because the motivation to do so would not be there. Also in my last video I mentioned that I didn't want my whole channel mirrored, duplicated in its entirety. The reason for that is I don't want all of my old videos plus all of my new videos to come, to be perfectly duplicated by a channel I have no control over, because people might assume that other channel is the originator of the content. However, if you want to mirror all of my videos, you can, as long as you have many other videos from yourself or other people. I'm just really against the whole having a perfect duplicate of my channel out of my hands. And, why is it snowing? Has hell just frozen over or something? Actually yes it has. I just got through watching Femitheist's new video, and let me tell you something, I just gave this woman a standing ovation. Femitheist has just made a video about why telling men not to rape is completely stupid, and proposes an actual solution that any rational man, woman, feminist, or MRA, should actually be able to agree with. I'm serious. All this rape culture accusations can come to a halt if we take her idea. Let's take a look at her video, shall we?
Hey everyone, Krista here. Today I want to talk a little bit about a debate that seems to arise frequently, and that is the whole issue of telling men not to rape versus telling women how to dress. It always appears to me that people tend to usually be on one side or the other, with a few people in between, and they seldom seem to be willing to try to understand the other side's perspective. You have the people on one side, some of which I'm friends with, who think that we should tell and teach all men and boys, specifically because they are male, not to rape, because they believe that rape is a gendered crime. And then you have the people who do the what we call victim blaming, by saying that women shouldn't dress a certain way because it is known or implicitly known that you're more likely to be raped if you're dressed provocatively as opposed to conservatively. Much like someone who is driving through a ghetto at night is more likely to get carjacked than someone who takes the long detour around said ghetto. I personally do not agree with either perspective. When it comes to blaming women for dressing a certain way, my position is that the victim's responsibility ends where the rape begins.
Alright, here's the thing, this is my one and only argument. I've never heard anyone in all my life, in real life, say that rape can sometimes be the fault of a woman because of what she was wearing, or the type of person that she is. It's an argument feminists say time and time again, but where the hell are these people? I think like rape culture and patriarchy, these people claiming dressing like a slut means you deserve to be raped, are just a myth from the hysteria of feminists. But yes, I agree wholeheartedly with Femitheist here. No matter how much of an attention whore a woman is, no matter how trashy she is dressed, no man ever has a right to put his hands on her, and likewise no matter what someone says, no matter how hurtful, hateful, provocative, and inflammatory their words, you do not have a right to hit them, ever, and if you do hit them, you need to be punished for it. The thing is, no one is denying this. The courts are not letting rapists go because the woman was dressed like a hoochie. Feminists are constantly insisting this is exactly what is happening, and this is what is pissing men off and causing all the arguments. The other thing is the alleged victim blaming. If you tell women to moderate their drinking, use the buddy system, don't use drugs with strangers, and it doesn't hurt to dress modest, if you give these helpful tips, you're called a victim blamer, you're called a rape apologist, and you are reminded that it is never ever a woman's fault, and you are told that the one and only thing that needs to be done is to teach men not to rape. You see, men are incredibly stupid animals barely capable of controlling their rape impulses, so teach these males, these genetically predisposed rapists, to just stop doing it. That's what the feminists are saying, and it is hateful, it is sexist, and it is downright stupid and not a solution. Their words of teach men not to rape is just downright man-bashing. It's sexist and hateful and inflammatory and causes the knee-jerk reaction in men to stand up against their hateful words and argue, rather than to see things from the other's perspective. Just as Femitheist said, the feminists and the MRAs are both having knee-jerk reactions forcing them to argue, rather than understand where the other is coming from. The men hear, you're all a bunch of rapist, bad men, bad. The women are hearing, well, it's your own goddamn fault for provoking those poor boys by dressing like a slut, you were totally asking for it. This is what each other is hearing, even though this might not be what each other is actually saying. Femitheist gets this, and she has a solution.
We need to stop placing the guilt of rape solely on men when we go about teaching people that rape is wrong. We need to seek to inculcate in all people, female and male, black and white, all human beings, the idea that they should respect the personal space of others. We need to teach everyone to not take advantage of others. We need to instill in everyone, female and male, an understanding that rape is wrong and that they should not harm or violate others. The only thing that we will accomplish by targeting men on rape is making them more aggrieved and resentful, specifically if feminism, and the proof of this sort of antipathy towards the notion of teaching men not to rape can be seen in many places. We just have to stop doing it. We have to go about condemning it and teaching that it is wrong in the same way that we do most every other crime.
There's your solution. Stop telling men not to rape, and start telling people not to rape. Start actually teaching this as a genderless problem. Avoid the oppression Olympics. Don't worry about who is more likely to be victimized or a perpetrator of a crime. Focus on teaching that the crime is wrong, what the crime looks like, and what the crime results in. We don't target blacks and tell them to stop carjacking. We don't go to schools, separate the whites and the blacks and the Asians and Hispanics, and start preaching to them that they need to avoid doing whatever crime their race statistically does the most. Doing that would be accusatory, insulting, bigoted, and ultimately counterproductive. You teach all people not to carjack, and you tell them what the penalty is. You tell them the exact definition, and then you show them people who have spent 10 years in prison or whatever. You let people see what a bad move carjacking is. That way they seriously think of the consequences before committing the crime. You know, there might actually be a handful of incredibly stupid high school jocks that would see a real hot blonde skank passed out, and start touching her, or penetrating her, and seriously not know that what he was doing was by law rape, and that he can spend the better half of his life in prison for it. I think all high school-aged boys know what they're doing is wrong. They might even know it's illegal, but you know, it wouldn't surprise me if some of them weren't fully aware that this is by law rape, and they are facing something like a decade in jail for this. Having them honestly know that for sure, might really discourage them. People, both male and female, do need to be told what exactly by legal definition rape is, and what by law is sexual assault, and what is lawfully sexual misconduct, and sexual offense. We need both males and females, at a young age, to be aware of what exactly and precisely the definitions are, what it looks like, what it feels like. You ever stop to think how many young boys and girls have been raped, or at least molested, and they didn't know it? They knew there was touching they didn't like. They know it made them feel bad and sick and violated, but they didn't know that what that person did to them was really against the law and should be reported to the police, especially boys who aren't supposed to cry about things, not supposed to go tattling on people, and are told that they are perpetrators of rape. They can't be victims, only girls can be victims of things like that. How many little boys get inappropriately touched by the sitter or friend of the family, and are sitting in shame and silence because no one ever told him that the thing that just happened is called molestation, rape, sexual assault, and that the person who did it knows they broke the law, and they need to be reported so that the police can lock them up so that they don't do it to any more little boys. We need to teach children at a young age what all the different categories of sexually inappropriate behavior are, and what penalties each one carries. I honestly believe this would reduce occurrences of these crimes. and may help to filter out some false accusations, and increase people's likelihood of speaking out when they become victims. We teach girls to report it, but we don't teach boys to report it. Well, if we taught both girls and boys, and we didn't target either sex, I think this really would be for the best. You know what, I used to say teaching men not to rape was fucking stupid and pointless, and within the context in which it was being presented, I stand by that. But when saying boys and girls both need to be taught in school to be able to identify, and avoid doing, certain behaviors that fall under various sex crime categories, and what the penalties are, suddenly I am all in favor of that. Christ, it took Femitheist of all people to get me to understand that. Hell has truly frozen over. If both feminists and MRAs could agree that placing a completely genderless discussion in the schools on rape, and making the definitions and penalties crystal clear, is a good thing, then there may be hope for our future after all. This would benefit females, and I honestly think it would benefit males a hell of a lot more, and it would take away a feminist's claim that we live in a rape culture. It's really a win situation for everyone, and because this would benefit males so much, I think A Voice for Men should link to Femitheist's video. I also think because this solution would finally in a roundabout way teach boys not to rape that Skeptic and other feminist groups need to link to it. It would be interesting if out of all the shit, it's Femitheist's new proposal that would be the first thing both sides of the gender war could agree on, and I ask all of my subscribers to go to her video, watch the whole thing, and give it a thumbs up. Let's give credit where credit is due. Now if you'll excuse me, I am going to get some hot cocoa.